what do I need to do for myself? And I just began on a piece of paper scratching this out. And over time, I created this method, this planner system where I was able to begin finding more of a balance. And one of the big things for me was I would write down like everything I had to do for the week. And I saw my schedule and I thought, okay, I knew what I wanted to work on something for my mind, something for my physical health,
Yeah.
something for my community that was like friends or support groups, and then something I would enjoy, like hobbies. And I began looking at my schedule. I'm like, I can't fit anything in here.
Hello, and welcome to Cassandra Uncaged. I'm Libby Clark, and if you found me, then we found each other. Are you tired of feeling all alone in your neurodiverse marriage and no one believing or understanding what you're going through? Do you feel like you've lost yourself? Is your heart sick from deferred hope? Would you like a personal shepherdess to guide you out of the valleys of neurodiversity into life-giving green pastures to help you become the best version of yourself while you're in a season of waiting for circumstances to change? Come join the safe community of Cassandra Uncaged. Let's open the curtains and get you out of that corner. Grab a journal and pen, release and have peace. A new joy-filled chapter is just around the corner. Hi, friends. Today, you will enjoy hearing from a champion wife and my friend, Christina, who herself has a podcast called Neurodiverse Family Life. And she will tell us about a project born out of her story. It's a gem. And I think you'll really enjoy hearing Christina's story. So let's bring her in. All right. Well, welcome, Christina. We are so glad to have you join Cassandra Uncaged today. And I have explained a little bit to our audience who you are. Your podcast is called Neurodiverse Family Life. And, you've been married 18 years and you have 3 children.
Hmm.
And all 4 of your loved ones are neurodivergent. And
Hmm.
so in so many ways, we've walked a very similar journey. And then I also love to honor the uniqueness of everyone's journey. So I love story. So how about if we get into your story and let's go back to tell us what it was like to when you got married and when did you know that this is possibly what you were looking at and what did that all look like coming into that diagnosis and all of that?
Hmm. So when I was married, I got married later in life, around 31, 30, 31, and he did not know that he was neurodiverse, and neither did I. And the beginning years of our life, pardon me, it was difficult. One point, it was easy because it was so nice to have someone like focused on me, interested in me. I come from a large family, so it was nice to be that center of his attention. But at the same time, there were these difficulties. Like sometimes he would compare me to other women and how I looked and why don't I look like that? And it was his very just observational mind, just noticing like, well, why don't you dress like that? Or why do you and I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, like you don't say that to a woman. But now I can look at it and say, oh, he was just expressing I see a difference here and being very blunt about it and wasn't trying to be later on I was able to see, but it was at the beginning it was very hard because obviously like our hearts get hurt. And then fast forward, every the best way I can explain it is that every time we added on a complexity, so going from dating to engaged, engaged to marriage, and then like we didn't live together until after we were married. So we moved in together then. And then adding on the first baby and then the second baby, each complexity, his ability to handle the what many of us would consider like normal, you know, problems were limited. And I remember somewhere around, it was our first child, and he was 3 days old, and my husband had to left for a work trip. And I was just shocked. I'm like, our son is 3 days old. Like, this is not what usually happens. Like, usually there's like at least 5 days. And I started seeing like the crying baby impact. Like, and we all have heard men have a hard time with crying children.
Mm,
That's a common thing. But this was like different. And I thought, oh my goodness, like what I don't know what to do about this. And I was trying to think like, well, how do I be a good wife and a caring wife? And I come from a faith background. So I began getting these messages all really got twisted inside of me because I was trying to understand the challenges my husband, and I could tell though, being very uh is objective that my husband was struggling. He was in pain sometimes. Like I could see him being in pain from the sounds, from the noises. And my life got smaller as the difficulties got bigger. So my social life drastically changed my first year of marriage. And then when we added in like one child, then two, eventually three, it completely changed. So I really, there was this confusion, and I kept thinking, what am I not doing right as a wife? The
mm,
questions really were directed towards me more so, and a little bit towards like, I wonder why he's responding that way. But honestly, my lens was there must be something I'm doing wrong. There has
mm,
to be, because if everyone else I know, they're not having these problems. And I know like I'm the oldest of a bunch of kids in our family. And so I'm used to being around, kids, and I knew
mm.
I knew how to handle these things. And I'm like, well, I must be doing it wrong if we're getting this result. So that's kind of like that confusion unknown is what I like really dealt with the first couple of years.
Oh, that's going to be so helpful for the listeners to hear because I'm sure that that's ringing true with many of them. And so then what was the moment when you kind of said, I think I know what this is?
Well, this is the funny part of the story. Funny and like and ironic is when I realized that the stuff going on, this is way beyond. I think I began doubting myself actually. And I began thinking, well, maybe it's not really as bad as you thought. I actually kind of talked myself out of it. It's not that bad, Christina. But the more I watched other families and my friends as they were going through similar life stages, I realized this is not normal, Christina. So my spouse went and did a eval with a psychiatrist because he was also struggling and he was frustrated. He's like, this is not the kind of husband and dad that I want to be, and why am I having these problems? And there was a whole bunch of different answers that were given that were like zero help. Like they were actually caused us to go like, oh, it's this mental health thing, it's that mental health thing. And we finally had one person we went into, and he did an eval, and I'm thankful for the eval. I'm not thankful for the follow-up though. The eval said that he was autistic, and they gave us a small little pamphlet. I'm not even kidding you, Libby. It was like this two-sided pamphlet with a little bit of information and go, there you go. That was it.
Wow.
He says
Oh
there's
my,
no medication that you can use. This is, you were born with this is lifelong, and that's it. I was
wow.
shocked. Now, this is where it gets into the you did what, Christina mode, because I got the diagnosis and I remember looking at this piece of paper, and Libby, I was like looking at it and looking at it. Okay. And I began researching and I began finding like terms like Asperger's. And this is when the DSM began changing from there's Asperger's, it became part of the autism spectrum definition.
Yeah.
And so I saw different lingo online, but there was so limited stuff. And all I saw was a lot of women who had blogs talking about autism or Asperger's marriage. And I remember reading through, and I read through page after page after page, and I said, nope, nope. Nope, this can't be it. And so then we put the papers into a safe and we locked it up, and I nope, not dealing with this. That was what I did.
Wow.
Obviously that
Wow.
was a mistake, but at that point my brain was so overwhelmed that at
Yeah.
that moment all I saw was there is no hope, and we have no answers for you. And for me, I can't work in that worldview.
Wow.
And so I says, okay, we're just going to ignore this until
Wow.
later on, until something else comes up.
Yeah. That's amazing. That, like I say, again, that'll be very helpful for the listeners to hear. I wonder if anybody else has had that experience. I suspect that it's come along a ways. How many years ago was that?
Goodness. He's So that would have been almost, it was 15 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah, 15
things,
years ago.
that's amazing. Things have come a
Mm.
long ways since then. I certainly hope nobody's sending people home with a brochure anymore.
Please don't. If you're a practitioner, please don't listen to Libby and I. Like, don't.
Yeah.
But I
Oh
think
my goodness, yeah.
a quick side note in this, Libby, maybe I'm sure you've seen it. I think there are so many resources for kids, and there's more
Yes.
now for young teens and for young adults. But then
Yeah.
it's like silence, crickets when it comes to
It's so
like
true.
those who are older. And that's
Yes.
where I feel is a like what you talk about and I talk about is such a great need because especially if there's that gap generation or if they weren't diagnosed even now and they didn't have any really interventions and they're like 25 years old, they're in this really difficult world of trying to understand stuff. And I feel there are more resources than before, but
Yeah.
there's still not enough, especially in relationships. Like
Yes.
how do you relate to your wife, or if you want to be in a relationship, you need to do your part of it if you want this
Right.
relationship.
Right. Exactly. Wow. So eventually you got to a point where you did face it. So what did that look like?
Yes. So in the back of my mind, like even though I put it into the safe, I'm like, la 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 la, it's not there. Uh, I still had it in the back of my mind and it resurface. And I remember asking the doctor, every single well child visit, I said, I kept saying, I think my kids may be autistic. And I'm not kidding you, Libby. She did a quick, like, she like, oh, look at my eye. Look at me in the eyes. Like a 15-second check she did. Now, and that was like, oh, no, they're not. And my mama gut, and this is where, like, if your gut is telling you, like,
Mm,
there's something going on,
yeah.
don't ignore that. And every single year I was asking that question, like, I don't think there's just something going on. And my mama gut would not let me go. It would just keep turning. And I was doing reading. And then I came to the point realizing sometimes the experts are not the experts. That's
Yeah.
a hard thing. The experts at
Yes.
school, the experts at the doctor's office, sometimes they are not like the expert of everything.
Yeah.
And when I began realizing that I'm looking for answers from someone who really can't give them to me, that began changing. So then my daughter was having speech delays and she was having some services, and that services were ending. And there's the point where the school would take over. So we went to the school, we did like a half a day eval, and then I get the 70-page report. And basically it says, yep, she has needs. And I call my kids like the gap children. Like they're just educationally made them like, oh, they're just really smart. But they're socially where they were at wasn't enough of a problem for the school. Like they didn't
Wow.
cause enough problems, so therefore they wouldn't get services. So I'm reading through this report, Libby. Page 70. Page 70, there's just like one sentence, and it says the Gillian autism rating score is at a certain level where she actually rated into autism. And I went, what? They never told me this
Wow.
at all. Never.
Oh
And like
my
I kept reading that
goodness.
page over and over again. And I'm like, I
Wow.
pulled out the form from the safe and I looked at it, and Christina talked to myself, you can't ignore this anymore. So then
Wow.
I found a qualified person to do first one child, then another. My third one, I'm like, no, my third one is so empathetic. Nope, yes. And that was a tricky thing because the empathy, I'm like, no, 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 he can't be. He is so empathetic, but he was. And that really taught me autism, neurodiversity. There is some basic things that are the same, but how it's displayed can be very different.
Absolutely.
And for my
Absolutely.
daughter, like it wasn't until they saw her in a social, like, they're like, I don't know. And then they saw her socially. Thank goodness the practitioner saw her in a social setting because when they
Wow.
saw, they go, oh yes, now we can see it. Like everything else we saw,
Wow.
like, but because she was at the family of all, like her dad and her siblings were all neurodiverse during the eval, she's like, oh, she seems to be fine. Well, because everyone else is reflecting that worldview of thinking.
Yes.
And that's a big thing. If you are not getting a good evaluation done on your kids, having them in a social setting can be very eye-opening for the practitioner.
Oh, what a great tip. And It's so true what you said about that sometimes the professionals, the experts, especially in the area of autism, because
Hmm.
if you have not lived it, if you have not experienced it in your life, wow, I like to say I'm experience certified, you know. I mean, there's just nothing like, being a mama with a neurodiverse bunch, right?
Hmm.
Wow. Okay, so then your journey officially began.
Yes.
What kind of things, I mean, I'm sure it's been just a journey of learning and figuring stuff out, but tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah. So I made a mistake in the beginning because I remember reading several different articles and blog posts saying if you don't do an intervention before the age of 8, you're in trouble. And actually, Dr. Stephanie Holmes and I just talked about this recently on a podcast about how, like, where did that number come from? And I don't know where, but let me tell you, as a mom's heart, that brings dread and fear. Like, oh my gosh, like not only is this overwhelming, but like my sweet child, like I have unknowingly done, like quote unquote, unknowingly done something that has made you're going to make your life harder. And so every single therapy I could find, all three of them was not sustainable at all. And I was looking because I was in this stressful moment, and I'm sure you've been there, Libby, and your listeners have too, where you're caught between your spouse who you love, and you can understand the trials that your spouse is going through with the unexpected changes and transitions, kids having meltdowns, the house is not organized in a way that they prefer, and the clutter is making it hard for them to focus. And then their reactions can sometimes cause problems for your kids, and your kids' reactions, a sense of overwhelm, can cause problem for your spouse. And so
Yeah.
this like in between, you feel like you're standing like on one of those weeble wobbles and you're trying to like, okay, if I just stand perfectly still, maybe everything will be calm. And I kept thinking like, okay, what can I do? Because life at home is so crazy. I was survival mode. I
Yes.
literally remember waking up in the morning and I would like, in some mornings I was so tired, my different hormones were just drastically just withdrawn and just drawn down. And I would crawl out of bed.
Wow.
My cortisol,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking of. My cortisol was so
Oh, yeah.
low that
Mhm.
I could barely get out of bed. I remember like crawling to the bathroom thinking, Christina, this is not sustainable.
Mm.
What are you going to do about this? And then I would just push hard all day because I am a very go-getter. I mean, I feel like all women in these marriages are very smart and
Mhm.
capable, but they begin questioning that the more they
Yes.
deal with these challenges. And so I'm
Yes.
like, well, if I just keep the house cleaner, if I just find the right therapies, if I read the books, if I,
Yeah.
fill in the blank, then it will get better. And then I
Yes.
can rest. And I kept doing that. So I would go to bed way, way late. And I
Yeah.
would be exhausted. And the next morning, I'm waking up just as exhausted as before. So that
Yes.
cycle,
Yes.
because I was focused and I kept thinking the lie was if you figure out, you love your spouse, you love your kids. So if you can figure out how to help them, then your life will get better.
Yeah.
Because obviously my husband, he didn't know this, so he didn't have any advantages of like what my kids do, where someone was telling them like, well, this is how you regulate. Like, so all of
Yeah.
that I was with him. And then my kids, they were still learning.
Yeah.
But the answer, that wasn't actually the answer though, like I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, and I keep hearing that verse, hope deferred
Mm.
makes the heart sick. So did that impact your health?
Oh, that is such a good question. Yes, hope deferred. Yeah, that is even now it can be just very hard when you are hoping for something and it doesn't come through. So I began noticing, I mean, again, before I could just go, go, go. I could push myself. I could go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, wake up
Yeah.
at, 5:30 in the morning. I could basically not sit down the whole day and just,
Yeah.
and on top of that, we had each child had their own what we call teacher, we use that term, but like their own like therapist would come into the home to help with their
Yeah.
therapy. So we would have anywhere between 3 to 5 extra people in our home.
Wow.
And like all of that, and then the coordinating the schedules. And I began noticing I couldn't bounce back anymore like I wanted
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, it kept like a snowball, it kept growing and growing, like it's rolling downhill. It kept growing until it came to the point where I remember I was laying on the couch and I was thinking, I gotta get up and make supper for the kids. And I didn't know how to.
Mm.
I was so exhausted. I was
Yes.
so burnt out. My adrenals and everything, like it was both emotionally and it was physically, mentally,
Yeah.
all of it was just drained out. And
Yes.
I was scared
Yeah.
because I knew that the challenge of like for my spouse to be able to do what I did, that wasn't going to happen. Not that he
Yeah.
didn't want to, but like he had different gifts and skills.
Yeah.
So then what do you do when you feel like that exhausted? And I used paper plates for a while. I found everything I could do, but there's a point when
Yeah.
you say, this is a problem that is not solving itself.
Yes. And you know, I what I see over and over is the enemy's thievery to rob all the joy and strength away from these beautiful women because I just see in the heart of these wives such a valiant warrior woman. You know, I like to think of it as call that forth because there is something in you that God has equipped you with, dear mama, you know, that you have something that you're going to bring here. You're going to, I call it culture shifting. And it's really not our own strength. It's really tapping into heaven's solutions. That's how I like to think of it. So, and obviously you have. So what happened then? What did you start to tap into?
So I actually quit my full-time job because when the kids were young, I began seeing like, oh no, like especially the defining moment for me was the 45-minute meltdown of one of my kids spitting in a circle on the floor. That
Mm,
was my Christina, you need to make changes. So I had quit my full-time job, which I loved,
mm,
and was at home. And when I came to the point where I was like this exhausted, I began thinking through like, well, I'm a planner. I've always been a planner. I love it. I love all things like I walk into Hobby Lobby, Michael's, and it's like,
yeah.
woohoo,
Yeah.
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Joanne's, may you rest in peace. We miss you. Uh,
Yeah.
but like all those different stores,
Yes.
pardon me, I really enjoyed. And
Yeah.
so I went back to my planning roots and I began looking at how I could look at my all the things I have to do, which is the things mainly a lot of it is home and mom, but still the things as a wife. And then the other hand, I was looking like, okay, what do I need to do for myself? And I just began on a piece of paper scratching this out. And over time, I created this method, this planner system where I was able to begin finding more of a balance. And one of the big things for me was I would write down like everything I had to do for the week. And I saw my schedule and I thought, okay, I knew what I wanted to work on something for my mind, something for my physical health,
Yeah.
for something for my community that was like friends or support groups, and then something I would enjoy, like hobbies. And I began looking at my schedule. I'm like, I can't fit anything in here.
Yeah.
I cannot fit anything in here. So either one, I need to delegate something. So I am doing something that another person can do for themselves. Or I need to cut things out that maybe they're good and they're kind of important, but they're not like extremely important. And some of the therapies were some of the things I ended up dropping because I began
Yeah.
evaluating. I came to the point realizing, okay, before I did all three kids and all the different therapies, and then I shifted to, well, this one child would benefit from equine therapy. And this child would benefit from occupational therapy. So I actually still went to three different places, but now it was just one child at a time. And
Yeah.
that brought more time into my life. And then stopped having people coming into the home working with the kids because I realized that I was doing a better job than they were. I attended all the different therapy appointments. And so I insisted on that. So I found ways I started to like, Christina, you need to cut things out. And as I cut out, I began adding in from my mind. I got up in the morning. I had time. I did my Bible time, my journaling.
Mm,
Journaling was so important. I took
yeah.
morning walks. I did exercising. I began like 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a
Yeah.
time.
Oh, beautiful.
And then I slowly increased. In fact, at one point, Lily, I could not walk. I couldn't take a walk in the neighborhood. I only could walk around the house
Yeah.
because I knew if I walked farther away from the house, like there would be something would go wrong.
Yeah.
I had to be like I had to be within the yard. So I just like,
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna walk around my house 10
Yeah.
times. But like that started it, and each little bit helped me expand. It kept like it's the same snowball effect, but now is a
Yes.
positive one.
Yes.
Now it's going into I walked for 5 minutes. Now I'm doing 10 minutes. And you know what? I spent like a half an hour I had in the morning. I got up, so like it all began working for me. And then, pardon me. And then the other half of it is that I began being a better mom. I was no
Yeah.
longer
Yes.
snapping or
Yes.
the meltdowns. I was able to handle easier. And my empathy, which I did have, it was extended longer than it did before. Before, my empathy only would last for so long, and now I found it growing. So that was kind of the realization, like, okay, I think I'm onto something here.
Wow. That's so beautiful. That's like that concept of they tell, like on an airplane, they say to the parents, take the oxygen mask before you give it to your child so you have the energy and strength to help your child. Well, that's
Hmm.
what you were doing. And it's such a beautiful, and then you're shifting the culture of the home. There's more, you're exuding I think I'm okay now, or at least feeling a little more okay, and so
Hmm.
it does, it affects the whole culture.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially when if your child or your spouse is having a very like robust expression from a meltdown or the meltdown itself or the impacts. I mean, sometimes they can be pretty very strong, and there's some women who are dealing with the fact that it can be actually harmful. You need time to recover. I don't know of anyone who can deal with all those meltdowns and be like, oh, okay. Like there
yeah,
is an impact that happens. Also,
yes,
the patience for when someone's sensory overwhelmed. Like, and
yeah,
all of it can be understandable, but that's when I realized when I saw a growth in me was when before certain situations would come up and I would need a day to recover, sometimes even more. It was just was so uh I was so exhausted, but usually because one kid's meltdown would cause the other two to have meltdowns. So it'd be like an hour and a half, 2 hours I was dealing with meltdowns. And
yeah,
that really did wear on me. And I remember the moment I go, whoa, I recovered pretty quickly from that. Like I
mm,
quicker than normal. And I began seeing the hurtful conversations sometimes between my spouse and I, where before it'd be impacting me for a longer amount of time. And now I'm like, oh, I bounced back from that actually quicker than before. And that
yeah,
was encouraging for me because that's
yes,
the worst thing is when you have a conversation with a friend or maybe something at work and you like it's like sitting with you
yeah,
longer than it should be. You can like it's in your mind, it's in your heart, and to be able to process that and be like, okay, now I see maybe I could have done this differently, but I see what they own, and I now am able to be present in this current moment instead of keep thinking about what had just happened.
yeah. Wow, that's so awesome. I'm thinking of that verse, I believe it's in Song of Solomon, where it says, "Who is this coming out of the wilderness, leaning on her beloved?" And you had kind of gone through that end of the rope wilderness, like this is not, and it's like you you just went into this beautiful solution mode. All the giftings within you poured out, and you
Mm.
began to spend energy with God in the morning, and you were able to lean on him, and just to see the hope spring back. And yeah, that's really, really beautiful. Wow. And so tell us more about how you are developing that process. It's being birthed into something very amazing.
That is the exact right words, Libby, because I feel like it's almost like giving birth, how long
Yeah.
I've been working on this project.
Yeah.
So I am creating a planner system, which will be launching by God's grace in July. The Kickstarter for it, I should say, is launching. And it's a binder system. So it's like a planner binder where a six ring where a woman can go ahead and add the paper she needs to. Because I feel like there's so many times when there are doctor's appointments or there's special notes that we want to have in our planner. And so many other planner systems, it's like coil bound. So you can't really add things
Yes.
in there as easily.
Yes.
So it's
Love
a
that.
six ring binder. And the insert itself is based upon the system I use. So there is this concept of life roles, which I mentioned before, like wife, mom. In there, I have it listed differently, but it's meant to be like whoever is your most significant person.
Yeah.
Like that is you relate. That's what that term is. I
Yes.
use that. So that
Oh,
could be like you're not married. If
mm,
you have whatever that main relationship you have in your life, that's where that focus goes. And then there's family, which could be you have your own kids or maybe it's extended family.
right.
And then it's home and work. So all those different things are roles that we're doing that we can every week we can spend time. And the goal is that it's how we're improving that. But then the
Yeah.
other end, there is the life care, which some people call self-care. I prefer life care only because in our world, this is not, oh, I'm so exhausted and tired. I think I need to go to get a like a massage. You like people wait until they get really tired. We don't have that luxury because it's more of like the oxygen mask that you mentioned
Yes.
before, Libby. It is
Yeah.
something like every day that we need to be
Yes.
doing every week.
Yeah.
And so when we have that mindset changes things when you think every week I need to do something
Yeah.
in these different areas. And that one is mind, your emotional mental health, your health itself, which is your physical health, along with like what the food you're eating, exercising, and then community, like what you're doing with your groups, coaching, friends. And then the last one is enjoy, which is the hobby. So those four, and in the middle of it is faith. And faith is something both a role and again, if you're not a person of faith, this is something like what you're religious, where you fall. But for me, it's I am a Jesus follower. So therefore, there is a role that I have, but also there is a life care, which is like I am the daughter of the king. And in that, that faith is kind of helps me balance. If you can imagine like a teeter-totter, that faith is in the middle, and that helps me prevent from being a diva. Because we see
Yeah.
people do this all the time where a woman's like, oh, my life is so hard, so it's all about me. And I think almost everyone in neurodiverse families, like, we're not that way at all. But we can fear that we can become a diva. And I don't, I rarely see that happen. Or there's the other end, which is the a martyr, which is like everything is for my family. I don't really exist. And faith
Yeah.
helps us keep that balance of
Yeah.
no, Jesus doesn't want you to be a martyr in that. Like, that's not what he talked about. And no, not to be a diva. So faith helps keep that balance. And so in the beginning, the women fill out a assessment form, looking at relationships, looking at their deepest longings, and from there, creating yearly goals. And these goals, a goal can be as simple as I want to be able to walk 30 minutes in a day. It can be as
Yeah.
simple as that. And then you
Yes.
can break it down over the each month and then every week. And so where the goal in it being so small to me is so important because when I
Yeah.
looked at other planning systems, people were talking about these big rocks and big goals. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my big goal today was I got a shower and it lasted
Yeah.
4 minutes because someone got an injury and I had to like run out quick, So like for me, like that was my thing was a shower. And so I look
Yes.
at other planning systems like this, I can't even relate. I feel bad
Yeah.
about myself.
Yeah.
I feel bad. And so that is the goal is that they're able to break it down into like I have these goals, each month, what I'm going to do in each one of those areas, and then it carries over to the week. And then every quarter there's a check-in. And so I like when I filled out in the past, one of the questions was like, how is your most important relationship? And sometimes I put a pretty low number on there. And then I had to say, okay, what can I do about it? My 50%, not
Yeah.
80%, not
Okay.
90%, but what
Yeah.
can I do for my 50%? Because I can't do his 50.
Yes.
But I can do my 50. So what is it, is it my mindset? So that quarterly check-in kind of helped me see where I was growing. In some areas I was like a 7 or 8. I'm like, wow, I put that down as like a 1 before, and now I'm at a 7, 8. Like,
Mm.
and so able to see the growth, and then I began
Yeah.
adjusting. So that's what it really is. But it has your daily task in there too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone has a pretty robust to-do list.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's just like I say, it's so anointed because it was born out of your gifting in your neurodiverse story. And so it's just, that's precious. Thank you for using your gifts to go after
Oh,
this. Yeah, that's wonderful. Very exciting. So it's going into launch mode. Do I have that correct?
yes, on
Okay.
July, I'm just checking my calendar. July 13th is when it's a Kickstarter, which some people might not be familiar with it, but Kickstarter is an all or nothing type of program where if enough people sign up, then the program is funded because I spent my
Okay.
personal funds in developing all the prototypes. But
Yes.
then for the actual product itself, once enough people come together during the 21 days, then like ding, it's funded, and then I can go
Yeah.
place the order. So that there is this really sweet community
Yeah.
aspect of other women who, and the great thing about it is that if a woman is in like a coaching program, like I know you have one, Libby, and many others do, that they can use this with that coaching program. It's not like only with my program. It's like if they already have someone they're connected with, that is
Yeah.
beautiful. They can keep
Right.
doing that, but this works really well
Yeah.
with other
Wow.
people. And what I like about it is that it's really meant, and I think you mentioned before we got on that like it's for caregivers. It's really meant for those who are caring for others. And the other side note is I'm more non-toxic, natural person just because my kids have had so many different health issues and I like, oh my gosh, like what is this? And I've gone down this road. And one of the things I remember going into a store and I saw there was a cancer warning on a planner binder. And I go, what? But that is something that I found like over and over again is that especially the full leather binders oftentimes are made out of very hazardous chemicals.
Oh,
And if you're
wow.
holding that all the time in
Yeah.
your arm, like
Yes.
I don't know, I got enough hazardous stuff in my life.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I mean, God is a God of order and beauty. And I think this planner just brings order and beauty.
Hmm.
And, the enemy is just kind of a chaos causer. So we'll make sure that we put all the information in the show notes about joining Kickstarter. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, yes. It's on my
Yeah.
website, it'll be christinamarie.com/planner. And then that will have all the information for people to get it on the Kickstarter. And then by God's grace, if it is funded, eventually you can also get it off the website. But
Okay.
again, this is kind of a big this is a big leap for me because you never know, like, are there going to be like no one there? And if it's not, then at least I did it.
Oh,
But
absolutely. But I think it's going to be pretty popular.
oh, I hope
And
it helps. My main thing is like for you, like reason why you started your podcast, right? It's born
yes.
out of I can remember, and I'm sure you have this moment too, but I remember just being on the couch in 2018 and just bawling and crying and feeling like I just don't know what to do. And I had the planner at that point, but that was when I began really diving in even deeper and realizing like, okay, Christina, you kept thinking like, well, things are going to get better, but what if they don't? What are you going to do? And when I really began diving in to my self-care, it gave me the ability to see things a little bit differently, but also do the roles that I need to be doing.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that some of the listeners might be curious when you do like the quarterly check-ins like with your spouse, how is that helpful for him? I mean, is it
Well,
what's the
actually, I do that by myself. So
Oh,
that's
okay,
me
gotcha.
reflecting. Yes, I I don't know how that would go over
Okay.
with for different people, only because thinking of a neurodivergent perspective,
Yeah.
they can have, I think it's a good conversation to have, but I probably would say that for most women, they probably would just do for themselves. Like, how are they seeing the marriage? And
Yeah.
maybe having like a side conversation with their spouse and I'm sorry if you guys can hear my kids in the background. So sorry.
Oh.
It's a very
Well,
active house here.
yeah, it's real life, right? I
It,
actually
oh,
don't hear it, but
oh, great. Okay, it's real life. Yep. But Yeah, I think that it's mainly for the woman to reflect on how does she see the marriage?
Yeah.
Where is it at? And I think it can also be a good reminder of like, oh, I should have a conversation with him. Like, how are we
Mm-hmm.
doing?
Yeah, sure.
Because
Yeah,
it all depends
absolutely.
upon like, yeah, his like how open is he with relationships, and sometimes depending upon where their spouse is in that journey, they could be
Mm-hmm.
more in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning part where thinking like, no, there's nothing wrong, or maybe they are more open and realizing like, oh, you know what,
Yeah.
I want this relationship, so I'm willing to work in the relationship. So that can be
Great.
um that can be a definitely a hard spot for many
Sure.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're on target for, and this is what I always say too, is when a wife in neurodiversity can get herself whole and healthy, that's a win no matter what. And then I just think it spreads from there. But it's certainly a beautiful, beautiful win for wives, for peace. And yes, wow. This has been really awesome hearing your journey. And so you've been birthing this for how many years have you been thinking about this journal?
Well, I've been working on it since 2013 through many iterations of, well, that didn't work. And then,
Yeah.
just finding different ways, designing it on Adobe InDesign. But the actual binder, that kind of process has been 4 years. Finding the
Okay.
right manufacturer who would
Wow.
make it in a way that, because I was very particular on the
Yeah.
standards for work environment and the standards of the material itself. And so it took me longer than other
Yeah.
people because of that. But I also believe like this is something that is important to me. It's almost like
Yes,
you're putting your
absolutely.
like photo day for like your family out. Like you want to make sure the kids
Yes.
are wearing clean clothes and hair is
Yeah,
fixed.
yeah, right.
And so for me, it's like
Exactly.
I want to make sure this little baby here is looking good.
Oh, for sure. And I'm thinking about, isn't it elephants? They're like pregnant for a really long time, you know. So this is just this beautiful thing that's been cooking, and we're very excited. Well, we will put all of your information in the show notes, and we are so thankful that you came on and to hear your journey, your story, and to see what God has put in your heart. That's beautiful.
Thank you,
Yes.
Libby, so much.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to touching base again sometime.
That would be wonderful.
Friends, wasn't that fun? Don't forget to check the show notes for the links to Christina's amazing planner launch. And just like Christina is launching her new planner, I am closer and closer to launching the new group platform. I think heaven is opening up for neurodiversity. Some beautiful resources are being made available to bring some love to neurodiversity. Hope is on the way. Hey friends, until next time, have a great week and check out CassandraUncaged.com to find community, resources, and a free consultation to see how I may be able to help you. Here's Steve.
We're praying for you and trusting that our breakthrough will make a way for your breakthrough. Please share this podcast, subscribe, and leave a review. Join Cassandra Uncaged and become a member of the army that will change the face of neurodiversity.